up, guys? So, continuing the Marvel movie marathon, today's movie that I'm going to be talking about is Captain America the Winter Soldier, which is directed by the Russo Brothers. Their first time helming a Marvel movie, but certainly not their last. I was really looking forward to talking about this movie because Captain America the Winter Soldier represents such a significant turning point in the MCU. I was rewatching it the other night, and just like 15 minutes into this movie, I could immediately tell just how much the Russo brothers had upped the ante with not only the Captain America movies, but the MCU movies in general. This was phase 2, and by now, the MCU brand really had been solidified in pop culture. In a post-Avengers world, the MCU knew how big of a deal it was at this point, and Captain America the Winter Soldier was just so self-assured and confident. It's a film which knows exactly what it is and just feels so secure in itself. It's so damn patriotic and proud, you just want to salute it. Was Captain America anyone's favourite Avenger before Winter Soldier? Probably not. Steve Rogers was always a bit of a goody two-shoes in the early Marvel movies, you know, a bit too clean-cut, a bit too safe, bland. Bit of a wet blanket, but in Winter Soldier, they really texturize his character. His ideology is put to the test, and this is where Chris Evans really came into his own as Cap. The plot takes place X amount of months after the events of the Avengers. Steve is still adjusting to 21st century life. He's working for S.H.I.E.L.D. as a special operative alongside Natasha Romanoff, once again played by Scarlett Johansson. But when Nick Fury, once again played by Samuel L. Jackson, is targeted by a terrorist called the Winter Soldier, Nick passes on some sensitive information to Steve and tells him not to trust anybody else with it. So Steve goes on the run along with Natasha, they both become fugitives, and then they discover some startling revelations about not only the Winter Soldier, but S.H.I.E.L.D. itself. The Winter Soldier is a step up from Captain America the First Avenger. It has more focus as a plot. It also feels more like a political thriller than it does a superhero movie. It actually addresses a lot of real-world topics like national security, surveillance, and terrorism. So it's a little bit more accessible, this film, as a superhero film, because the threat feels more closer to home. But it also presents some interesting conflict for our protagonist Steve to wrestle with, because when he learns from Nick Fury that they're planning to use these helicarriers with loads of weapons on board as a means of national security, Steve doesn't know if he can work for an organization which uses fear as a means of policing and protecting the country. Chris Evans does an incredible job of conveying that divide within himself between duty and belief. This is why he's a far more compelling character in this film as opposed to the first Avenger. He's wrestling with an inner conflict, which is fascinating because it completely juxtaposes his own ideology. The Russo brothers also expand upon what Joss Whedon did for Black Widow's character. They really give her a large part in this film. She's essentially a co-lead. Wasn't quite sure what they were going for with the relationship dynamic between Natasha and Steve. Were they going for sexual tension? It kind of felt like they were, but it wasn't quite hitting the mark. But I guess that's because Cap's heart belongs to Peggy. I'm not sure, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. I really do like the character of Black Widow, and I love that even though she is still a supporting character in this, she's so much more integral to the plot than, say, what she brought to the table in Iron Man 2. Like, she was just there for gratuitous sex appeal, but here, she actually feels important to Steve's development. I still feel like we could have gone a little bit deeper. They just kind of like talk about her mysterious past and the Red Ledger, but they don't really give you any details. I'm just like, oh, she's so interesting. Give me more! We also get the introduction of Anthony Mackie's character, Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon. He brings such a lovely counterpart to Steve. They just bounce off each other so well. I really love Anthony Mackie. He's got so much charisma and he's so good in this role. There were a few more supporting characters which I think need a little bit more time to cook, like the character of Kate, or Agent 13, played by Emily Van Camp. She gets a fair share of the screen time, but I didn't find myself caring too much about her. And then there's Alexander Pierce, who's played by Robert Redford. Redford really does have screen presence. However, I think there was a problem with the script, with how his motives came about, because he seems like a really reasonable character. Like, he seems like a sane human being, and yet he still wants to commit this mass murder on the American populace. And I'm like, why? I know he's Hydra and he's supposedly evil, but I still didn't quite get his motives. I'm just like, okay. Saying you're from Hydra and that you're evil is just, it's a cop-out. It's not really a motive, it's just circumstance. So yeah, as much as I love Robert Redford, I would say that he does fall into the forgettable villains of the MCU bin. The action scenes in this film, though, are on another level. Like, it's probably why this film is so damn entertaining, because there's so much variety when it comes to the action scenes. You've got like hand-to-hand combat scenes, you've got car chases, you've got aerial combat where falcons flying through the air, you've got buildings falling down. But for me, you can't beat the simplicity of the elevator scene. It's such a great, simple scene, and you can feel the tension bubbling as every second passes in that scene, and it's just so well done. When it comes to world building, there are some references to like Bruce Banner, but more particularly Stephen Strange, who hasn't come into the MCU yet. I don't even think he's got his powers yet, so the fact that he's on S.H.I.E.L.D's radar really says something. Anybody else notice when Nick Fury's in Steve Rogers' apartment and he's playing the song on the record player? That is the song from the last scene of Avengers Endgame when Cap goes back in time and stays with Peggy and they have their dance together in the living room. Oh, lovely little touch. Hey, we also get Peggy in this film. Hayley Atwell comes back to reprise the role, except she's covered in this sort of, not de-aging, but rapid aging software. And it looks quite convincing. My only negative of it was that she didn't sound very old. She still had the voice of a much younger woman.
Always so dramatic.
But they use her sparingly. She's only in one scene, and she does bring a surprising amount of emotionality to the film just by being in this one scene. And then there's the reveal of the Winter Soldier. You should all know who this is by now, but in case you don't, spoiler warning, it's Bucky Barnes. I liked the reveal that it was Bucky, and it certainly presents some more emotional conflict for Steve. However, I do have a slight gripe with the handling of the Winter Soldier narrative, because I don't have a problem with the character of Bucky or Sebastian Stan that plays him. I actually think he's a really interesting character. The only problem is with him though, is that because this film is told from the perspective of Steve, we're meant to care for Bucky because Steve cares, which is fine, but I wanted to get to know Bucky on a deeper level here. Like, I wanted to know more about what happened to him when he fell from the train in the first Captain America movie. I wanted more insight as to how he's feeling. His backstory is scarcely touched upon in this film. It doesn't offer a lot of insight into what happened to him. And I wanted to see more of Bucky's perspective. That way I could sympathize with him more. But the only reason I care for him in this film is because Steve cares. But I feel like there was more room to explore Bucky's character here, and the film doesn't quite deliver it. As for other negatives of this film, there are a couple moments which are ridiculous, but I can kind of forgive because this is a superhero movie and it's meant to be escapist entertainment. Like, you'll be watching an action scene where Steve, and he tosses his shield, it bounces off like 5 different surfaces, completely defying the laws of physics, and I'm like, okay. Or the fact that Alexander Pierce just chooses to kill unarmed lackeys rather than Black Widow, who has a gun on him and actually poses a threat to his plan. It's just like, why would he do that? He would kill the person that actually stood a threat to him, but we know why he doesn't kill her. Plot armor. Or the fact that all 3 of the Hela characters conveniently fall from the sky, but either land in water or the Hydra building, nowhere else over the entire spread of DC where there are lots of civilians to crash into, because guess what? That plan is dumb, to shoot all the cannons at either helicarrier over a densely populated area of America. It's a dumb plan. All these things, I'd be like, that would never happen. But then I say to myself, well, Luke, that's why they call them superhero movies and not documentaries. Whoa, calm down. So let's ask those questions. Would I recommend it or skip it? Definitely a recommend. This is such a superior sequel to the first Captain America movie in every way. But it's also one of the strongest and most competently made movies in the entire MCU. So yeah, recommend it. And question number 2, what score do I give it out of 10? Definitely has some flaws, but it doesn't detract from the sheer awesomeness of this film's entertainment value. It's so much fun to watch. So I'm gonna give Captain America the Winter Soldier a score of 7.5 out of 10. But as always guys, this is just one bloke's opinion. I want to hear from you. What do you think of the Winter Soldier? Like it, dislike it, love it? Is it your favorite of the Captain America movies? How would you rank all 3 of the Captain America movies? Whatever you think, be sure to let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. If you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, it's also in the description link down below. If you like this content, want more like it, don't forget to hit that like button, and of course don't forget to click subscribe. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Carefield, and I'll see you next time.